Juicy Luke Getsy's back in town. Packers don't really need any help beating the Bears, but it's nice. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews, where I'm your host, John Delray. Today, going through Packers versus Bears Week 18, and I'm going to say right at the forefront, this is not necessarily your typical preview, because this is not exactly typical circumstances for the Green Bay Packers, and there's several reasons for that. So I'll still cover, most of the same stuff, but a little bit different order, a little bit different of spin to it. Certainly a little bit more Packer-centric than I normally do in preview shows. So first of all, a couple things before getting to that injury report, a few newsworthy things. Number one, Luke Getsy has indeed been hired back as a consultant in Green Bay. And the reason that this kind of came about, if you will, is because a few of the beat reporters actually saw him walk into the facility today. Now, if you don't remember, Luke Getsy used to be the quarterback coach in Green Bay. He was an offensive coordinator for both Chicago and the Raiders. But his roots certainly go back to Green Bay when he was a very successful quarterback coach, worked here for a number of years. And so beat reporters then asked, hey, why is he here? And LaFleur revealed that he's actually been hired on as a consultant for the last few weeks, and he's been helping the defensive side of the ball, kind of doing a reverse Saleh, if you will. And so LaFleur revealed that, been a few weeks, and here he is. He's helping. And he also revealed that his nickname in Green Bay is the Mayor, weirdly enough. So then number two newsworthy item happens to be the Packers seeding, right? I just want to rekeep that quick because that is going to be a very large theme in this episode. Keep in mind the Packers right now are the 7 seed. If all things maintain status quo, then they will be the 7 seed. What the 7 seed means in the playoffs is that they are heading to Philly for round 1. Now, the only way really that they're not going to be the 7 seed is if they happen to win and the Washington Commanders, against a completely defeated Dallas Cowboy team, happen to lose in Week 18. That's it. That's like the only way, really, practically, to get to the 6th seed. If they do get to the 6th seed, then they can take on either Tampa Bay or the LA Rams, of course, on the road again, but it would be one of those two teams most likely. So that's about it. In all likelihood, Green Bay is going to be the 7th seed. And why does that play into this? Because Green Bay is now in a situation where they don't control their own playoff destiny. Whatever their seed they're going to be is basically up to the Commanders. So Packers now have some decisions about, who's going to play. Do we want to rest anyone? For what it's worth, Matt LaFleur said that they are going to be playing all of the healthy starters, but he hasn't truly revealed for just how long. Are they going to play the whole game? Or are they only going to play until the Packers are up just by a little bit and then hoping to put the Bears away from that? So we'll see. With that in mind, let's dive into the Packers injury report. Looks a little bit longer than it really is for all intents and purposes. Jaire Alexander, he's out. Yeah, we already knew that. We know. I have a feeling an IR stint is going to be coming for Alexander, but maybe not, because they may just be hoping for a miracle recovery out of Alexander, and they'd like to have him available if not. And it's not like they need the roster spot anyway. Alexander's already been holding one down for quite a while. Then you got Zane Anderson still out with his concussion. You've got out Andre Dillard, also with the concussion. Then you've got out Quay Walker, still recovering with that ankle injury. I got to have a feeling like he wasn't going to play no matter what. So hopefully he's at least on the comeback train. Same thing with Evan Williams and his quad. As for the two questionable designations, something kind of interesting here. One would be Brenton Cox Jr., the defensive end. And then also Christian Watson, the wide receiver, continuing to work his way back from the bone bruise. So here's my feeling on each one of these guys. Brenton Cox Jr., of course, it would be nice to get the pass rush, another game in with everybody there, right? But ultimately, he's come on really strong lately. If he's got any kind of nagging injury, just sit him. Generate your pass rush from everybody else. Lord knows even Pro Bowler Rashawn Gary could use a little bit of practice in this game. But on the other side, Christian Watson, generally speaking, unless a bone bruise makes all the tendons around vulnerable, then they're not going to really make the injury worse by going out there and running on it. And if he's already practicing and he's got a questionable tag, then you would think the Packers medical staff has cleared him to the point of you're not going to blow out your knee. It really is just a bruise. You've got to tolerate it and we got to keep the swelling down. In which case, for him, I say I want him out there. And there's a couple reasons why, but really, My main priority going into week 18 is to get the passing game right, to give it some momentum going into the playoffs, to give it some kind of late season surge that we really haven't seen yet this year like we did last year. And in order to really do that, you gotta have Watson out there. We saw what the passing game looked like. It was basically capped against Minnesota because it didn't have its main deep threat. It didn't have one of its main man coverage beaters. So, gotta have Watson out there in order to reach the potential, and I really think this is a game where they gotta strive to reach that potential. Two guys not listed on the injury report that I would give a lot of thought to playing in this game or not. And of course, understand, you want to win this game. You want to beat Chicago. You want to at least increase your chances of getting the 6th seed. But no matter what, you got a road game in the playoffs. You're going to be facing a tough team. To get to the Super Bowl, which is frankly really the only goal that matters here, you're going to have to go through the top teams on the road. So, Philly in round 1, maybe a rusty Philly team, right? I mean, that's got to at least be part of kind of the equation, right? So, I say that with the understanding of you want to win this game, but these are two guys that I would prioritize maybe giving some rest. One, Elton Jenkins. The man's been dealing with a knee injury for what feels like eternity. Honestly, I think that this should be a pass-heavy game plan, and to put in Telfort in there at left guard, give him some chances, especially as he's continuing to like diversify himself at guard. It may not be the worst thing in the world. I'd be fine with giving Elton Jenkins a week off. Then on the flip side, Josh Jacobs. He's not a rhythm running back as far as I'm concerned. He just seems like you can just give him the ball and he'll just go. He doesn't necessarily need carries to stay in rhythm. And that workhorse has taken a pounding over the last couple of weeks. I got to just say, let's let Brooks and Wilson shine for a week. I'm just fine giving Josh Jacobs a week to catch his breath. Maybe you just keep him active for emergency purposes. But I frankly don't really mind if we don't see him one bit in this game. All right, so let's go to the Bears side of the injury report. Very straightforward, very simple. They got 3 guys who are out: Elijah Hicks, Travis Homer, and Tevin Jenkins. All right, so this is the part where I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Normally now I dive into who are the Bears, what do their stats look like, and yeah, we'll get to all that. It's just the Bears. But I really want to outlay my 2 objectives for this game. Because as far as I'm concerned, the main priority for the Green Bay Packers, like I said, of course you want to win. But this game is about building towards something else. Building momentum. Building on some positive things. Or in areas where you haven't had much positivity lately, make sure you at least get some before you go on the road for what is inevitably a tough matchup no matter where. And there's really 2 things here that I really want to hyper-focus on. And that would be the passing game. I want to see something explosive out of it. And then 2, the pass rush. Now, you should be able to accomplish both of those things against Chicago. And I don't think you necessarily got to go all 4 quarters. But, kind of like my feelings on preseason, I hated that the Green Bay Packers were the youngest team in the NFL, and yet preseason was this totally optional, no, we don't need to play all the young guys, they're fine, and then they got a slow start to the season. I kind of view week 18 like the same thing. I don't think the Packers should be treating this like the Aaron Rodgers era, where they're all old and decrepit and just need a week off. No, these dudes are young. They got to go play. So I'm going to play them for at least the majority of this game. But the 2 things that I'm focusing on, explosives in the passing game, get that passing game in rhythm, and then the pass rush, I want them to annihilate Caleb Williams. They got to have a strong game. And I found this quote when looking at Washington. I found this quote from Dan Quinn, because Dan Quinn, Washington's head coach, was asked, what are you going to do with your starters, considering that you ultimately are in a similar situation to Green Bay? You got to play your starters, etc. And here's his quote. We're going to go after as hard as we can. I think the seeding portion of this is really important, and that's what we've discussed as a team. We thought last night the vibe was awesome at the game. We thought we left some plays out there, and so for us, that leveling up as we're heading into this week with Dallas would be really important. But we recognize having a 6th seed and going into the playoffs with that is a good thing. And so we're going to fight like hell to keep that. I haven't heard from the Green Bay side of things, be it the players in the locker room or Matt LaFleur, the attitude that says, Matt LaFleur has said, like, there's work to be done. They haven't played well enough to earn a week off. Yes, that is all good and true. But I haven't necessarily heard it phrased like Quinn does here, where it's about, we need to go out there and accomplish set goals in order to prepare for the playoffs, to level up, right? And the Green Bay Packers are the youngest team in the NFL. I don't necessarily want them to act like they've been there before, because last year, yeah, they went to 2 playoff games. It's not like they're sitting on a resume of years of this. The organization is. The players are not. So, you're going against Chicago. I think it was Dusty Evely, who's always brilliant. He put out there on socials earlier this week that the passing game doesn't look right. It needs to find rhythm. I don't know where I've heard that before, but he needs to find rhythm. And he would love it. And I don't even think he was being sarcastic. I think he was telling the truth. He would love it if 12 of the first 15 scripted plays were pass plays. Make them quick. Have Love fire the ball around. That's what I want to see. And that's why I don't mind if Josh Jacobs gets the game off. I want to see the Packers walk into this game in Lambeau Field at noon in January. It's going to be cold as freaking get out. There might be some snow in the air. And let Jordan Love light off some fireworks. And if it doesn't work, I don't care if it's impractical. If it's 1st and 4 because of penalties, take your deep shot. They do that sometimes anyway. And if it doesn't work, then do it again on 2nd down. Because like a pitcher in spring training who's told to only go out there because you're working on your curveball, so I want you to throw 17 curveballs in a row, I kind of want the Packers offense to treat this like that. Of go out there, find rhythm, complete the easy ones, get a couple deep shots. To amplify what we do to get us into the playoffs. And then on the flip side, you're going against the 2nd most sacked quarterback ever. So go get him. And that's without Brenton Cox Jr. I don't care if Hafley has to send the dogs on every single down. Go get him. Because I want both of those things to reach a new level before going to the playoffs. If they go into the playoffs with their last things being a totally stagnant, off-timed offense and a pass rush that can't get home anywhere, can't get to Darnold even though he's carving you up, then I'm not going to feel particularly great about going on a run. But if you can beat up on your little brother from the South, yeah, even if it is the little brother, who cares? It's at least something positive to amplify yourselves into the playoffs. So separate from win-loss, separate from anything else. And if you do those 2 things, you're probably going to win the game anyway. But separate from everything else, that's what I want to see. Those are my only priorities in this game. And of course, come out healthy, all the unspoken things. Yeah. But those are the 2 play priorities in this game. And plus, have a damn attitude like Washington. Act like you're young. Go ball out. Be hyper-aggressive. Go have fun. Because I didn't think I would have to say it with these young Packers, but boy, been a couple weeks since we've truly seen a fun-loving team on Green Bay sideline. Kind of nice to get back to that before the playoffs, huh? All right, so let's round this out. I should cover the Bears a little bit, right? Who are they? Well, they're 4-12. They suck. They got wins against the Titans, Rams, Panthers, and Jaguars. They started off the season 4-2. Remember that brief period where we're like, damn, this is the best division in the history of the world? And it is, but Chicago forgot how to play football. They've got losses against the Texans, Colts, Commanders, Cardinals, Pats, Packers, Vikings, Lions, 49ers, Vikings, Lions, and the Seahawks. Their last game was a loss to the Seahawks in a 6-3 thriller that'll be remembered by no one ever. And like I said, they haven't won. They start 4-2, then they went on bye in week 7. And then they just never came back from bye. They've had 10 straight losses. They fired Eberflus. They put in Thomas Brown to be their interim coach. I talked so much because the Packers were the first game for Thomas Brown. Talked about the changes you could expect in the offense from Brown. The changes are they've gotten a lot worse on offense. So, is this a game that the Packers should be particularly scared of? No. I am willing to bet, though, that Chicago, given the losing streak to Green Bay, given the fact that they have nothing to really play for besides just ensuring that Green Bay gets a worse seed, they are probably going to want this game really bad. Really bad. They want to end that streak to Green Bay. I guess I'd be a little concerned about that, but this Bears team is broke. So let's cover some stats for the Chicago Bears, will we? Their defense over the last three. They are giving up 127.3 yards per game on the ground. That's 13th most in the NFL. In terms of attempts, they're getting run on the 11th most. So that lines up pretty well. But in terms of passing defense, they're giving up 229 yards per game through the air. That's the 8th most in the NFL. However, attempts, though, they're only getting attempted against the 18th most in the NFL. Yes, a 10 slot gap there, which is part of the reason Jordan Love, go do it. Then in terms of points per game for the whole season stats for Chicago, they're sitting at 21.8 points per game allowed. That's 12th in the NFL. And then red zone percentage, they actually really strive in the red zone, 46.6%. That's third best in the NFL. Their offense over the last three, anemic comes to mind, 91.7 yards per game on the ground. That's the 7th least in the NFL. They also run it not much, the 8th least in the NFL, so that correlates nicely. But then in passing, 190 yards per game. That is the 9th least in the NFL. In terms of attempts, they're right around like dead middle of the pack. So again, it's through the air that the Bears be struggling. In terms of full season stats offensively, they're putting up 17.9 points per game. That's 29th in the NFL. In terms of red zone, they're 61%. Again, weirdly good in the red zone. That's 7th best in the NFL. However, over their last three, that number has dropped 28%. Over their last three. 61 to 28 basically describes the temperature in Wisconsin if you dropped it all by 20 more. It ain't a good place to be. It's uncomfortable. By the way, for all of the early season worries about Green Bay in the red zone, they're now the 9th best team in the NFL in red zone. Like, what a recovery in that area of the field. Over their last 3 weeks, they're now the 4th best team in the NFL in the red zone. Getting back to the Bears in terms of turnovers per game, this is one thing that Caleb Williams has really, really done a good job of in year one. Probably too good of a job per a lot of analysts because he's not taking enough risks, but they don't turn the ball over much. They're at a positive 0.5 per game. That's 9th best in the NFL. Sacks, though, different story. They get 2.3 sacks per game. That's 19th. But they give up an astonishing 4.2 sacks per game. That's most in the NFL. They've given up 67 sacks in 16 games, 9 shy of the NFL record. Do you remember that record? If you were around at that time, there was Carr for the Houston Texans. He was number 1 pick in the draft. Do you remember that year? The man was getting murdered behind the line every single time he dropped back. The Bears are damn near at that level, 67 sacks over 16 games. I'd love to see the Packers. I know you got to asterisk because there's like a whole nother game now, but go sack Caleb 10 times and rewrite the history book. In terms of penalties, the Bears get called for 6.4 penalties per game, and that results in 51.4 penalty yards per game, which is 17th in the NFL. So that's the Bears. The Bears are struggling. They are momentumless. Now, I do think they're going to give it their all in this game. But for Green Bay, the priority is not this game. You'd love to win it, but your playoff seeding isn't really in your hands. So get out there and accomplish bigger goals to set yourself on a further trajectory. Give yourself some kind of momentum and give that passing game some life before heading into the postseason. And maybe have a little fun while doing it. All right, everybody, it's time to go. Please join us on Sunday. It is a noon game Central Time on Sunday, so I'll be here to get the watch party started. Claudia will join us for the second half, but please do join us on this Sunday for the watch party as we enter into the playoffs as well. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have an absolutely fantastic weekend. And as always, go Pack Go.